Now I want to talk about the microanatomy. Remember I mentioned about the nephron? Here's Bowman's capsule. This is a diagrammatic representation of the nephron. As I say, you have about 1.5 million in each kidney. You can live with one kidney because you have so many of them. And structurally, this part of this is both in the renal cortex and in the renal medulla. If you remember take a look at your book and look at your gross anatomy of the sectioned part of the kidney, you'll see these renal pyramids, and you'll see that the loop of Henle, this part, does not exist in all of these nephrons, but there's enough of them that have it to do the function that they do. And these extend up from the into the renal medulla. So the blood comes in here, and as it comes in and loses plasma as filtrate, represented by getting into the the proximal convoluted tubule here. At this point, this is filtrate, but as it moves through the proximal tubule, it starts to lose water. You'll notice this is not a great representation, but the blood vessel coming out of the tubule is narrower because it needs to maintain blood pressure, but it's lost a lot of plasma. Okay, so the blood goes into the the plasma goes into the proximal convoluted tubule, where it is now called filtrate and starts to lose water. It also, at this point, there's active transport involved in the recovery of amino acids and glucose. And the reason that a diabetic might have sweet urine, diabetes mellitus means sweet urine, is because all of the glucose can't be recovered. There's just not enough molecules to do it if the blood has really high concentrations of glucose in it. So that's why the blood glucose tends to spill out. And if you'll notice, there's a new medicine. A couple of different companies are promoting it on the television advertisements. And what this new medicine for diabetes does is it blocks the resorption of glucose at this point and allows you to urinate more out, thereby reducing overall blood glucose concentration. As this filtrate descends into the loop of Henle, at this point water is being removed, okay, so that the filtrate is becoming more and more concentrated. That means inside the tubule there is a lot of salt. It's a salty mix, very salty. Now, one of the things that's missing from this diagram is the blood vessels that wrap around all of these tubules, because those blood vessels are here to pick up the water or other items that are being recovered from this filtrate. So there's blood vessels wrapped all the way around this, and the water that's picked up is absorbed back into the bloodstream here. Now, as this concentrated salt gets to the bottom of the loop of Henle and starts up, in the ascending limb of this, water does not move, either in or out. So what we have is a high concentration of salts here, a low concentration outside, and now salts and other items that different salts, sodium and so forth, can move out. And we can recover some of that. Then as we move into the ascending loop of Henle and into the distal convoluted tubule, now we can absorb water again to dilute the concentrate that's left to get it into balance, and eventually then it goes into the collecting duct, into the renal calyx, and into the bladder. As you can refer to the last video or your book and the pictures of this. Okay, so this little loop of Henle and this nephron is the functional unit of the kidney, represent the little chemistry set, what I call a cation exchanger, that works a lot like happens in the soil when water and minerals leach through the soil. The soil is a cation exchanger, and things happen that change depending upon the chemistry of the soil and the type of cations that are in it and their concentrations. Different things happen. So things are happening here by design to create urine. Basically, the essence is we want to recover the good stuff that we can reuse because it cost us energy to get it, but we want to get rid of the toxins that we need to get rid of so that those poisons don't poison us, which they could. When your urinary tract or your renal function shuts down, you basically die from the poisons you can't get out of your body. So kidney failure is a major cause of death among people, particularly elderly people who have had diabetes. My best buddy, Tom Hansbrough, who was a Marine colonel I worked for 10 years, died of renal failure ultimately. He had been on dialysis for a long time. I have had relatives who have been on dialysis after being diabetic for a long time. Hopefully I am controlling mine well enough to not have to ever have that problem, but it could happen and I'm well aware of it. So I do try to control my blood sugar by controlling my diet, and I probably should do a better job. I don't like the idea of going on dialysis because dialysis is just not that perfect. Okay, so what else do we want to talk about? I suppose the last thing I want to talk about is the video that I recommend that you watch on the functions of the urinary system and how it works. It's by Tammy Moore. You can simply find it by Googling it. Google urinary system video, Tammy Moore. There's Tammy's picture right here. She has got a couple of other videos on the lymphatic system and the immune system that are excellent videos. What I like about her videos is that you can outline as you go, starting and stopping, starting and stopping. I suggest that you look through the video, listen to it carefully, then go back and make an outline of the major points that she goes over, because she will explain how the nephron works. And that's what she's actually doing in this video, is she's explaining how the nephron works. And by the way, number 5 here, stimulates erythropoiesis. I forgot to mention, let's go back. I forgot to mention in either the gross anatomy part of the video or whatever, that within this Bowman's capsule here, okay, there are juxtaglomerular cells that detect oxygen that is being carried by the blood. And if they detect low levels of oxygen, we call that anemia, right? Okay, that's related to the hematocrit, which is the volume of your normal blood that is comprised of red blood cells, which is normally around 42%, but it can be high or it can be low. Well, physiologically, the way that that's regulated is from these cells in the Bowman's capsule, which secrete a hormone called erythropoietin, which basically means erythrocyte, in order to make more red blood cells, like Jay Leno says about the chips. You know, go ahead, eat them, we'll make more. Well, these guys are saying your blood's low on oxygen, we want you to make more red blood cells to compensate for that. So this hormone goes directly to the bone marrow, to the red marrow, and stimulates it to produce more oxygen, or maybe more red blood cells. What else can cause this to happen? Well, it can be caused by anemia. It could be iron deficiency anemia, which is a dietary problem. But it could be caused by living at high altitude. So if you live at high altitude, or if you visit high altitude or move to it for a time, you will have a normal hematocrit, but it will not be adequate to carry enough oxygen to keep you feeling good. You will sleep more often or more. You will be tired, more tired. You will get out of breath more easily at high altitudes than at low. And so it takes about 6 weeks for your body to build up enough additional red blood cells to be able to handle the low oxygen atmosphere at high altitudes. And you'll notice it if you ever move to, say you live on the seacoast and you want to go to school in Boulder, Colorado. Well, you're going to notice the problem. And but after a while, you'll adapt to it. And if you don't know about the problem, you may not notice it that much. But it depends on how active you are. Your friends will talk about it. Anybody new to Colorado will talk about it because some people will suffer it. So that's an endocrine function. There are other endocrine functions. If we go back to the, let's see, the gross anatomy. Well, I can go to biodigital human, can't I? Yeah. If we go back to the gross anatomy, and by the way, in the biodigital human, we see the kidney, but we don't see the endocrine system. So I'm going to put the endocrine system in. There we go. So look at the top of the kidney. Here's the adrenal gland, usually represented by a triangle. See if I can, there you go, there's the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland secretes glucocorticoids, which affect kidney function. And from the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, that's just, I don't know if this shows it. It doesn't really show it, does it? The hypothalamus is in your brain above the roof of the mouth, and the pituitary gland is just below it. And one of the functions of that is to secrete vasopressin, which helps you to regulate hydrogen ion balance and salt balance. So if you are in a situation where there's too much salt in your blood, you will urinate more, you will make more water in order to get rid of that. If you're in a situation where your blood is too thin, your vasopressin will help you to, the feedback mechanism actually will help you to conserve salts, and you may experience more urination as also because of that. So you know, like when people are having problems with water retention or with lymph system damage in their legs and they have to wear those pressure bandages, they usually take salt, not salt, but pills to make them urinate more to get rid of that extra water. So it's a complex system, and there's more in your book about it. You should read about it. But read about hormonal control. Let's see what we can find of the urinary system. Okay, so there's lots. Regulation of urine, okay. I don't know if I can expand this. So anyway, there's lots of stuff on it, and you can find it and look at stuff yourself.